Hi everyone, welcome to my review of Michael Winner's Death Wish in 1974. Yeah, this is a rewatch. I've seen it quite a few times now. It's probably around my fifth or sixth viewing of the film, and I hadn't seen it, maybe since 2015, 2014 actually. It's of course quite a famous film, of Charles Bronson, and the sequels as well, and 2 and 3 I believe, directed by Michael Winner as well. And the fourth one I don't think is. But they're panned really, the sequels, to be honest. One of them's got less than a 10%, I believe. And the second one we've got a 0 out of 4 from Rodrigo. And yeah, they're basically panned. But the first one, is it's got decent acclaim, and it's quite a popular film. I've seen it quite a few times, as I say, and it's basically a vigilante, revenge kind of film, and kind of thriller and drama as well. It's not too acclaimed, but I think it's a good film. And Charles Bronson, he's a great actor. I absolutely love Charles Bronson. Great Escape, wow, amazing in that film. Even better, Once Upon a West, an even better film. What a legendary actor, really. He's been in many great things, and in this, it was quite further on, in his career, and yes. Basically, the basic plot of this film is at the beginning. You see him with his wife on the beach, and it's got some weird opening credits. I'd say that the credits feel a bit weird, a bit kind of cheap, you could say. But it's got a campiness to it. This film, I will say that, and enjoyable for the most part. And yes, you basically see them together, and then he's also got a daughter, and then a son-in-law as well. And basically, what happens very early on is they get followed back, the mother and daughter, from the supermarket to their place, to their apartment, and basically, the daughter gets raped and the wife gets killed by these 3 mental cases. And they go in and they pretend that they're grocery deliverers. And basically, the rest of the film is, Charles Bronson finds out, of course, with the son-in-law, and he's devastated, of course, and basically it changes him. He's an architect in the film, and basically he turns vigilante, and basically goes on a spree, basically goes around killing people, and muggers and stuff like that, people that are trying to cause problems and everything. And basically it's a vigilante film. It's a thriller, and of course the police eventually try and see, they're obviously aware of what's going on. There's a vigilante on the loose, and you see as well in the media, things in the media and everything, where it's kind of encouraging other people to kind of change their stance and everything. And it's an interesting film in that sense. But yes, I think the first 30 minutes or so of this film are a lot better than the rest of the film, and you've got some returning kind of moments of quality towards the end of the film, but really it's the rest of the film is solid. The first 30 minutes or so are really, really good. I think there's 1 or 2 moments could be maybe considered great, and I just think it did let itself down a bit after that. It kind of turned a little bit into a slightly, not too much, but a slightly generic kind of vigilante film, and just kind of the way he just went around shooting everyone. But yes, Charles Bronson, it's not a great performance, I will say that, and I do think he's great in quite a lot of things. Definitely legendary on Once Upon a West. But in this, he's very enjoyable, very, very enjoyable, and just likable, and he's kind of always the guy that you don't want to mess with, kind of thing. And it's really funny to see that in this film, the way that he takes down these guys, these scumbags, throughout the film. But it's not a great performance. It's not, it doesn't give a lot of emotion, and some of the scenes, doesn't quite go to what I think should have happened, in his performance. The writing in this film is solid. It's actually got some really good moments, especially early on, really. But it's a solid script. At times, not too great. The bit where it's like, "Give me your money, honey," or something like that. There's some moments, of dialogue that isn't great. But I think basically, so the first kind of bits where they do get raped and killed. You know, daughter and mum. I think that's really, really, you know, shocking, brutal stuff. Very, very visceral and powerful stuff. And then as well, the immediate aftermath of that is really, really great. And I think as well when he goes away, you know, on his kind of bit where he goes to meet that other guy, you know, in the cowboy bit. That is great as well. Really love them bits, and just the sense of charm. I think really strong here, and you know, just some really good comedy in there, and actually lands. And just I did care about this character, Paul Kersey, who Charles Bronson plays, and yeah, just the guy he met as well, who gave him the guns. It's really, really good, and I love the bit, you know, in the script, and the scenes really where they discuss and they compare the different, you know, the crimes rates and everything, and the stance on that between there and the city, you know, New York, which is where it takes place, and you know, it does explore that, you know, crime and everything in at times quite intelligent ways. Other times, you know, it's a bit generic, as I say, later on in the film. But yeah, basically, you know, the son-in-law as well. You know, he's a character who he's not a great character, but he's enjoyable. You know, not a great performance, definitely not. But I think as well the main detective that kind of you know, kind of tries to track down who the vigilante is for the rest of the film. Is good. He's enjoyable. You know, quite a strong character. And yeah, I think as well, you know, it's quite moving. The bits where the daughter, you know, was the aftermath of that, you know, she's never the same really after what happened. Yeah, Jeff Goldblum is in this film actually, and very, very funny performance, very wacky. He's one of the guys that kind of do that thing early on, and that was funny to see. You know, I think it's one of his first, if not his first, you know, role in a film. So that's really, it's weird that he swears in the film, which is it's weird when you see, you know, you've seen Jurassic Park, of course, as a kid, and you've never really seen Jeff Goldblum kind of swear, or you know, one big polish it, but you know that in that way he says the C word and all that kind of stuff, and yeah, it was just funny, and yeah, it's a gritty film, you know, it's got really good moments of tension. What it does as well, it portrays the life of the city, you know, especially at night, really, really well. The atmosphere is very, very good. You know, the way that it kind of Michael Winner captures nighttime in the city, and the way that anything can happen is really good. And I think the cinematography at times it is a bit basic, but you know, a bit cheap, a bit tacky. But it kind of it doesn't hurt the film too much because it is kind of that gritty, you know, crime film, and you know, it is you know, it is kind of a brutal film and everything, so it kind of doesn't take her too much. But in terms of the camera movements and everything, you know, it's decent. But the editing, I think, is really good at times. The way it's been edited together does have a really good flow, and it has the kind of it adds to that visceral kind of feel it gives. This film really does, you know, it feels very realistic in that sense, which was what he was going for, and yeah, you got some moments of tonal kind of breaks here and there, and you know, it is a bit basic. That's what I would say. One of the big flaws of the film, that just stops it from being, you know, higher than what it is. It is basic at times. Really, after the kind of the main drama and the immediate aftermath of the events at the beginning, it does slightly veer into just kind of generic, a bit basic stuff. Where basically Charles Bronson does go, you know, he goes on his spree, and he kind of he goes and kills people, you know, and it's quite enjoyable entertaining to kind of see him take down these scumbags and everything that try and rob him. But you know, it is a bit generic because that's for the rest of the film. The drama isn't quite strong. There is moments that are really good where, you know, it goes back to the plot with you know, the daughter and the son-in-law. However, that was not really wrapped up, I don't feel, and it kind of it never, you know, really wrapped up at the end. Never, I don't think the ending really came together too well. It's kind of a way, yes, you know, the way some of it turns out is quite, yeah, it makes sense, but you know, a lot of things weren't wrapped up, and it was kind of a bit of a cheap and disappointing ending. But yes, you know, this film is not, it's no masterpiece, and it's not a great film for me. but it, you know, if it wasn't for the, if it kept up the quality of the first half an hour or a bit more, it could have been called very good for me. Actually, it probably would have. I really liked it. There was a couple moments I really loved. I think there was a lot of humanity there. You know, the soundtrack isn't great. It's a bit cheap once again, but it was a human film. You know, it had some good comedy in there. Very realistic, gritty film, and thrilling. And you know, I did care about it. It had an emotional undercurrent. But you know, there isn't. You know, the thing that does hold it together a bit more so as well, though, and after that is you got this cop coming in, kind of investigating. You know, leading the investigations into the vigilante, and you know, the way that it kind of plays on just, you know, the kind of civilians and stuff of the city is really good, and it's funny as well. But apart from that, you know, it doesn't really. It kind of it is disappointing, you know, a bit. But you know, I think overall, it is a good film. I definitely recommend it. You know, it's well directed. Overall, it's well shot, and especially you know some of the early parts, and you know, I really like the use of the lenses and the kind of scenes early on, and yeah, it's a visceral film. You know, it's got comedy in there. You know, Charles Bronson once again manages to pull off this kind of you could say action hero, but more of an anti-hero. This kind of, you know, person who doesn't talk too much, like he was, you know, in Once Upon a Time in the West as harmonica, but a bit different here. But yeah, he manages to put it off from his performance alone, and yeah, he's still, you know, a really memorable character. Just after, you know, the early parts, not a character with much depth, and because they did go for something really involving and human there, human drama, and they didn't follow through with that. That's what I have to judge it by, you know. If it started off and it was a film that was more of just a, you know, run and gun film, you know, it would have been a bit different. But then again, it wouldn't have reached them highs anyway emotionally. So yeah, but I think overall it is a good film. It would have been very good if, you know, it kept up that quality. Overall, you know, for its 90-minute runtime, it was a solid film, a good film. But if it had kept up the 30-minute mark quality, you know, up to that, as I say, it would have been very good. And yes, I'd have to give this film a 75%. You know, I don't think it's a classic or anything. But no, not much people say that anyway. But yeah, you know, I think it's a solid film. Very enjoyable though overall, and I loved certain moments. I really liked it at first, and I still enjoyed the rest of the film. It's just you know, it just wasn't as good, and you know, Charles Bronson, they didn't really follow through with the depth that they'd given early on, and yeah, there's obviously some flaws throughout as well. Some, you know, campy moments that a bit too far, and you know, a couple of tonal breaks, and you know, the acting from some of the side characters and even Charles Bronson isn't great, but it's, you know, that's what it is. And yes, it's a solid film. You know, definitely recommend it. And of course the sequels, you know, I don't know how they'll be, but I'll probably watch them at some point. I've never seen any of the sequels, I don't think. Maybe I saw parts of 2 at some point because I wanted to check it out. But I think actually I might have turned it off quite early on in that, so that's not a good sign. Because I was really wanting to see, you know, the sequels at some point, and just to follow this character still. You know, of course they won't be good. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe one of them's got 0%, but I think Death Wish 4. But yeah, you know, they're not going to be great. But I'll check them out at some point. But this one is a solid film. It's got some really good stuff. Quite unique in places, and yes, very enjoyable, entertaining, and you know, thrilling. Quite a lot of thrilling moments, and just, yeah, really, you know, a good gritty 70s film. So yeah, thanks for watching my review of Michael Winner's Death Wish.